Ananya Singh and Arjun Malhotra were just days away from a wedding that promised to unite two successful lives in Canada, until a shocking discovery exposed her entire identity as a lie, unraveling into a deadly chain of events no one saw coming. Ananya Singh had grown up in a middle-class neighborhood of Ludhiana, where dreams of going abroad were as common as the sound of traffic on the busy streets. She was known for her elegance, always dressed in spotless clothes, and speaking English with a polished accent that impressed everyone she met. Her social media painted the perfect life: photographs in front of famous Toronto landmarks, snapshots at corporate events, and graduation pictures in a flowing gown and mortarboard. The profile she posted on a popular matrimonial website seemed flawless: master's degree in engineering from a top Canadian university, a steady career at a well-known tech firm, and a lifestyle that promised financial comfort and stability. When Arjun Malhotra's family came across her profile, they felt as though they had stumbled upon the ideal match. Arjun himself was a rising software developer in Vancouver, respected in his professional circle and admired for his calm, responsible nature. His parents were traditional, yet proud of their son's success in Canada, and the thought of him marrying a woman who had already established herself there seemed like a blessing. The first video calls between Arjun and Ananya were warm and encouraging. She spoke about her passion for engineering, her busy schedule, and her dreams of starting a family in Canada. Her confidence and easy laughter reassured Arjun that he had found someone who could understand his life abroad. Relatives on both sides praised the match. The Malhotras wasted no time arranging the engagement. The families exchanged gifts, and plans for a grand wedding in Vancouver began. Flights were booked, venues reserved, and hundreds of guests invited. When Ananya landed in Canada 2 months before the ceremony, the stage seemed perfectly set for a union that everyone believed was built on trust, education, and shared ambition. Priya Malhotra had always been protective of her cousin. When she heard about his upcoming marriage, she was genuinely excited, yet a small part of her wanted to meet Ananya in person before the wedding. Arjun spoke about her with such admiration that Priya decided to surprise the bride-to-be with a friendly visit at her Toronto office. It was meant to be a simple gesture of welcome, but the moment Priya reached the sleek glass building, something felt off. She approached the reception desk, asking for Ananya Singh by name. The receptionist looked puzzled, checked the employee directory, and shook her head. There was no one by that name working there. Priya insisted, even showing a printed copy of Ananya's supposed company bio from LinkedIn, but the receptionist confirmed it was unfamiliar. Confused, Priya left the building and sat in her car, staring at her phone screen, rereading the company details. Her curiosity turned into unease. That night, she searched the alumni records of the prestigious Canadian university Ananya claimed to have attended. The results were clear: there was no trace of her. The more Priya dug, the more inconsistencies she uncovered. The address Ananya had listed in Toronto wasn't in an upscale neighborhood as expected, but in a cramped, aging apartment block. When Priya shared her findings with Arjun's parents, shock rippled through the household. They debated whether to confront Ananya immediately, but the looming wedding and the fear of public scandal weighed heavily on their minds. They decided to quietly investigate further, hoping there might be some misunderstanding. However, the discovery of her visitor visa, set to expire soon, only deepened the suspicion. Beneath the glittering image of the perfect bride, something far more troubling was beginning to take shape, and the Malhotras sensed they were walking into dangerous territory. The wedding day dawned bright and clear in Vancouver, with golden sunlight streaming through the windows of the grand banquet hall. Rows of white chairs lined the aisle, draped with flowers, while guests in colorful attire mingled, sipping tea and exchanging greetings. The Malhotra family moved through the crowd with polite smiles, but inside, tension gripped them like a vice. Hours earlier, the private investigator they had hired had delivered his final report, and what it contained left no room for doubt. Ananya Singh's academic records were forged, her job history fabricated, and her past littered with similar deceptions. The file was thick with evidence. Photocopies of degree certificates carried mismatched fonts and incorrect seal imprints. The official emails from the tech company were traced back to a free webmail account. Even more disturbing were the investigators' notes detailing prior engagements Ananya had entered into with wealthy men from Canada and the UK. all of which ended abruptly once financial or immigration benefits became an issue. In one case, she had vanished overnight, leaving behind unpaid rent and a trail of angry creditors. As the music began and guests took their seats, Arjun stood at the front, his expression unreadable. Ananya arrived moments later, shimmering in her bridal lehenga, every inch the picture of grace. But before the ceremony could proceed, Arjun's father stepped forward, holding the report in his hand. His voice, firm yet measured, carried across the hall as he announced that the wedding would not take place. A stunned silence fell, broken only by gasps and murmurs. Some guests rose to leave, while others craned their necks to see what had caused the sudden halt. Cameras intended to capture joy now recorded the moment the carefully constructed image of the perfect bride shattered in front of hundreds of witnesses. Ananya's face burned with humiliation as whispers rippled through the wedding hall. Her hands trembled, clutching the heavy folds of her bridal attire, but she refused to let her tears show. Without a word, she turned on her heel and strode toward the exit, the golden embroidery of her lehenga catching the light one last time before she disappeared through the doors. Outside, a taxi idled by the curb as if it had been waiting for her. She slipped inside, slamming the door shut, and within seconds, the vehicle merged into traffic and was gone. By the time she reached her rented room in Toronto later that night, she knew her life in Canada was collapsing. The investigators' findings had exposed everything she had worked to hide. Her so-called degree was an expertly crafted forgery bought from an underground network in Delhi. Her photographs at the university campus had been staged during a tourist visit. The job she boasted about was nothing more than a borrowed desk at a friend's office for social media pictures. But this wasn't her first time escaping exposure. She had been engaged twice before to men in Canada and once in the UK, each time abandoning the relationship before police or immigration officials could intervene. She was skilled at vanishing, switching phone numbers, using false names, and moving between rented rooms in unfamiliar cities. Now, however, her options were shrinking. She packed her few belongings into a suitcase, leaving behind clothing and personal items she couldn't carry. Before dawn, she disposed of her SIM card, wiped her online accounts, and withdrew what little cash she had left. To anyone looking for her, it would appear she had left the country entirely. But those who knew her past suspected otherwise. Ananya Singh was too cunning to run home. She would simply become someone else. 2 weeks passed in silence, and for a while it seemed Ananya had succeeded in vanishing. Then, on a cold February morning, a group of hikers exploring a remote trail in British Columbia made a grisly discovery. Partially hidden beneath a thin layer of soil and leaves was a large black suitcase. Its zippers were broken, and a faint metallic smell hung in the air. When authorities arrived and opened it, they found the lifeless body of a woman, her face bruised and unrecognizable at first glance. Inside the lining of the suitcase, a small envelope held a Canadian visitor visa bearing the name Ananya Singh. The autopsy was swift and conclusive. She had died from blunt force trauma to the head, likely from a single heavy blow. There were no defensive wounds, suggesting she had been caught off guard. Surprisingly, her expensive bridal jewelry and a wad of cash were still in the suitcase, ruling out robbery as a motive. Detectives began combing through her final movements, piecing together her trail from surveillance footage and financial transactions. A breakthrough came from a gas station security camera located less than 30 kilometers from where the suitcase was found. The grainy footage showed Ananya the night she disappeared, wearing a hooded coat and pulling a small bag. She was seen getting into a dark sedan driven by an unidentified man. The investigation soon revealed that several men had reasons to want her gone. Former fiancés, business acquaintances she had deceived, even one woman who claimed Ananya had ruined her brother's marriage. Each suspect carried a motive, but no clear trail pointed to one in particular. The discovery that she had been in Vancouver on the day of the cancelled wedding only deepened the mystery and hinted at a dangerous confrontation brewing in the shadows. Months of investigation slowly untangled the web surrounding Ananya's final days. Detectives pored over her past, speaking to people in multiple provinces and even overseas. The turning point came when a facial recognition search identified the man in the gas station footage. His name was Raghav Sharma, a Calgary businessman with a polished public image and a past he kept well hidden. 2 years earlier, he had been one of Ananya's targets. She had convinced him of her academic achievements and ambitions, promising a future together in Canada. By the time he realized her credentials were fake, she had disappeared, taking with her thousands of dollars in gifts and investments he had made for their supposed shared life. When confronted with the evidence, Raghav confessed in chilling detail. After learning about her wedding to Arjun, he decided to travel to Vancouver, attending the event disguised as a distant guest through a mutual contact. He watched from the crowd as the ceremony collapsed, relishing her public humiliation. Later that night, he reached out to her under the pretense of helping her escape the fallout. She agreed to meet, desperate for an ally. They drove away from the city, Raghav telling her he had a safe place where she could stay until she arranged her next move. Instead, the conversation turned into an argument. Harsh words were exchanged about the lives and money she had ruined. In a sudden burst of anger, he struck her with a heavy wrench from his car's trunk. The act, he claimed, was not planned, but panic took over. He placed her in the suitcase, drove deep into the wooded trail, and buried her under leaves and soil. The trial drew national attention, not only for its tragic end, but for the questions it raised about online matchmaking, immigration fraud, and the dangerous collisions between deception and revenge.